Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2019 horror thriller Blind, a film that is directed by Marcel Walz and it stars Sarah French, Caroline Williams, Tyler Gallant and Jade Rowan. And this film focuses on Sarah French's character Faye, who is a former Hollywood actress who has lost her sight due to some laser eye surgery that goes wrong. So she's living alone in the Hollywood Hills, pretty down, pretty low as you would be, and she has an unfortunate stalker, a guy that is obsessed with her and wants her all to himself, and as you can imagine in these situations things don't turn out particularly well. Right, without giving any spoilers away there, that's the basic gist of the story. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? These sort of movies are fairly common now for horror stroke thrillers. You know, the protagonist is blind, and then they're stalked, or there's some other horror connection linked to the film. We have seen many of these films over the years. Does this one stick out from the pack? Not really. I think what this has going for it is quite stylized at times, a quite interesting and inventive stalker stroke killer. I liked the mystery surrounding this stalker. You don't know much about this stalker at all. It doesn't make that mistake of piling loads of exposition and this, that and the other, and that's okay. I mean, we don't need to know these things sometimes. Some people might see that as a negative of this film. I actually didn't mind the mystery around this character, this stalker. Thought the how he appeared was interesting, different than other killers stroke stalkers that you see in movies. Has this mask on that makes him look like a Ken doll in Ken and Barbie or something like that. Pretty creepy, you know. In many ways, the appearance of this stalker and the lack of dialogue and all this kind of stuff. Yes, we know it's been done before with Halloween and Jason and all this kind of stuff. So they're not doing anything particular new with it, but what they do it reasonably well with this killer. The big problem I had with this film was its pacing. It's quite slow paced. It tries really hard as well to be like an art house film. You know, it's a bit pretentious at times. It tries to be a little bit more serious than it actually is. But ultimately, it's just a slasher film at the end of the day. You don't need to pretend you're this art house indie film to try and elevate yourself. You know, if you're going to be a slasher film, just embrace it would be my suggestion. The ending, desperately disliked the ending. Really didn't like that at all. And they made the cardinal sin as well in this film, that the fact that she's blind, not deaf, and there's more than one scene in this film where they even make mention to it in the film. She goes to like these meetings with other people who've lost their sight, and the person speaking, who she's got a romantic interest in, sort of says, you know, when you lose a sense, everything else, you know, tries to make up for it. You get better with all your other senses, which may be true, I don't really know. However, regardless of whether it does make it true or not, there's more than one scene in this film where she would have heard something. There's one scene with him outside looking directly in. A kill takes place. You know, she would have heard it. Something. And there's another one when he's on the inside later on, literally circling. You're not telling me she wouldn't have sensed something. You close your eyes and ask someone you know to walk around you in circles as quietly as possible. You'd know they were there. It just ridiculous, really. A couple of scenes in this film really make you roll your eyes. And like I say, it does get a little bit pretentious. It really tries to take itself a little bit too seriously, and I think what they had on the cards here was a pretty interesting slasher film. if they'd have just grabbed that concept and ran with it, because they've got an interesting killer, Stalker here. Looks cool, decent idea, no dialogue, very quiet, very stalky, and they could have done something with that. What they ultimately do with it is a little bit dull in their approach to telling this story, and it feels like, at times, it feels like a cheesy TV movie. Certainly when it starts, it feels like a TV movie, and there's some of the music it makes it feel a little bit cheap. So yeah, it's a film that I wanted to enjoy it a little bit more than I did. I did think they made some right decisions here with the design choice, like I say, of the killer. You can always do something interesting with a storyline where your protagonist is blind. I just don't think they do enough with this storyline to make it interesting. And there's not enough characters in it as well. You know, I mean, I know it's a low budget film and things like that, but there's a very small cast list here, really focused cast list, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. But to me, if you're doing a slasher film like this, it just felt a little bit too focused on these characters, this handful of characters. So yeah, it's a difficult one, this. I think it's not a terrible film, but at the same time it's not a good film either. It's somewhere well in between, which is why I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Pretty interesting ideas going on. Slasher film fans, might be some things you might enjoy in this one, but ultimately it's a little bit too pretentious, takes itself a little bit too seriously for my liking. So I'll give it a 5 out of 10. So I hope you like this review, everybody. If you did, please click the like button. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And of course I will be back with more content on Screen Stars very soon.